What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Unstruggle Mindset Podcast. I am your host, Ryan Glenn. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode. If you haven't yet done so, before we get started, however you're watching this, if you're watching it on YouTube, give me a like. If you're listening to this podcast on your favorite podcast provider, do me a favor and give the show a review. The only way we can grow is by you all sharing this with your friends and family. And then, of course, the higher rated a show is, the more the providers will show it to other people. So it just makes us a little bit more accessible, gets my message out there, to everybody that needs to hear it. And I appreciate you all so much for any support I can get on the show. Speaking of support on the show, if you wouldn't mind, if you're able, if you're not, it's okay. There is a link in the description of the show for you to financially support the show. It just helps with the broadcasting and things like that, and all the different, financial burdens that come with having a podcast. But I appreciate any and all support I can get. Thank you guys so much. On this episode, we are going to jump into something that's very near and dear to my heart. It's something that I myself had to work on for years and years. And it's, basically, as entrepreneurs, as human beings, or whatever, parents, we tend to stack our plates so high with shit that we have to do. Our idea of success is being busy, 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 run, run, run. We got to go, go, go in order to make that dollar, in order to make this happen, in order to chase our dreams. We had to be ridiculously busy. And that's what the show is about. It's about overfilling your plate and why being busy doesn't automatically mean that you're being effective. So the way that I put this, for all my parents out there, I'm going to give you a little scenario here. Say you take your kids to a buffet, which I do it all the time. My kids love the Chinese food buffets and things like that. But we take these kids to the buffet, right? They go up there, they'll eat. They do two things. Either they're going to mound that plate, they're going to fill it to the brim as much as they could possibly fit on that plate, or they're just going to get a few things here and there. Now, what I've noticed is when the kids put a few things here and there, they put two or three things on the plate, and that's their dinner. They tend to finish the entire plate without hesitation, without thinking about it, without any kind of outside intervention. They eat their food. But those kids that mound their plate, they fill it to the brim as much as they could possibly fit. I noticed that 9 times out of 10, no matter how hungry they are, no matter how much they think they can eat, there's always that child that has leftover food on their plate. And as a human race, as entrepreneurs, as parents, or however you want to put it, that's what we do to our life. What we do is we fill that plate to the brim with things that we need to do, with things that we need to accomplish, with things that other people need our help with. And we end up leaving too much on the plate left over. So the idea of this podcast is, how do we go from being ineffectively busy to being successful and being effective with our time, with how we do things? And this is one of the things, like I said, that I struggled with myself in the beginning. And, anytime somebody come to me like, hey, can you help me with this? I'm like, yeah, I can help you with that. And then I go help this person, and then in return, I take something off of my plate that I needed to accomplish for myself, or I leave it on there and it just never gets done. Or, so many people come up to you, and we know this on social media. We see this every day. So many people approach us with this amazing opportunity that we can make so much money with, or we can, succeed at, and things like that. And I need money, so I'm going to try it. And then we try it, and then we put all of our time and effort into it. And then once again, we leave something on the plate that could have been accomplished, that may have ended up in a better result than what we got. So how do we transform from busy to effective? Now, first of all, you have to establish your intention. Okay, we're going to establish our intention. What do we want to accomplish? How are we going to accomplish this? And what am I trying to do in accomplishing this goal? For example, doing this podcast, for me, it's not as much as making money. I don't plan to make money from this podcast. If I do, that's great. But the whole idea in the podcast is to get the message out there for people that need to hear it. which, I'm one of those people that need to hear some of these things going through my day to day. But we had to establish our intention. Okay, I'm going to do this in order to reach this goal. So why is this goal important to me? Well, this goal, I'm trying to build a business to secure financial freedom for myself and for my family. Okay, so you're trying to build a business. So you've established your intention is to build a business, and your goal is financial freedom for you and your family. So how are you going to do this? So then you're going to get into making an action plan, which I'll get a little bit more into action plans on the next episode of the Unstruggled Mindset podcast. So be on the lookout for that. But we're going to make an action plan, and we're going to say, okay, I want to establish this goal. So it's going to require this much of my effort in order to make this happen. So then you've got one thing on your plate. That one goal that you just established, you've set your intention for, is on your plate, and it's time to start eating it. So you're going to go through your week, cut out, 2 to however many hours you need to complete this goal. And then you're going to go from there. Once that's accomplished, you can decide whether you want to add more to your plate or if you want to just keep rolling with what you've got going on. So establish your intention. Next, you're going to set goals for your project. So you've already established you want to build your business. So my first goal is I want to secure my LLC for my business. Okay, so you're going to go through the steps to do that with your local government. Next step, I'm gonna start projecting stuff out on social media to let people know, hey, I'm here, this is what I do, this is the service I provide, or these are the goods that I provide. So step 2 would be, marketing on social media and things like that. And then one of the big things that I've found, one of the absolute top things at the top of the list that you need to, in anything you're doing, that you need to take into consideration, don't sweat the small details. You can't. There's no such thing as perfection. There's no such thing as perfectionism. You'll hear hundreds and hundreds of people say this in the personal development field. Perfectionism is just an excuse to put something off. Yes, I know we want everything to be beautiful. We want everything to be perfect when we put out there, because we already know there's going to be that one person that notices, hey, I messed up. With this podcast, I don't edit my podcast. I don't do anything like that. Everything's real, raw, live, things like that. And I know that sometimes I screw up, sometimes I fumble my words, but that's part of who I am. But nonetheless, the message gets out there regardless. So if there's anybody in the comment section that wants to talk about how I fumble my words, I know I do. So I don't need anybody to point that out. But if you do, at least you're paying attention. So we've set our intention, we've set our goals, and we're not going to sweat the small stuff. Now, with these 3 things in place already, we're already being more effective with our time because we're putting more work in, we're getting more done, and we're moving closer towards those goals. So we put one thing on our plate. Now we're going to add another thing, because now we're working on step 1 of starting our business. We've already gone through the action plan. We've started the marketing on social media, let people know we're here and what we do. So now we're going to put another thing on our plate. We want to build a website. Okay, so now you've got 2 things on your plate that are going to require your effort, are going to require your time. So then you had to split a little bit of that time that you've had set to build your business into building this website. Now, you can always make it easier and have somebody else build your website for you. That's fine if you want to do it that way. I like to be a little bit more in control of things. So for me, I like to, do everything myself, which I know in the long run is going to end up hurting me. But for right now, that's where I'm at. Possibly in the future, I can have somebody build a better website for me. But just to get started, we're going to talk about doing it ourselves. So we're putting the website on there. So now you're going to take that 10 hours, 20 hours, whatever you were using to build that business, and you're going to split it in half between those 2 projects. So now you're just like that little kid at the buffet. You've got a couple things on your plate, but you're handling it pretty well. You're able to get everything down that you have on your plate, versus that person that's saying, okay, I want to start a business. I'm going to I'm going to start my action plan. I'm going to start posting on social media. I'm going to build my website at the same time. I'm going to start a mini course. I'm going to do a full pledge course. And that's where I found myself. I was trying to do too many things at once, and I had stacked my plate up so high that it caused burnout. And that's a real issue that we deal with, especially when we're wanting to start a business, and we deal with burnout. We get too much going, and we tire ourselves out. So that's one of the things that stacking up your plate is going to cause. And just like the podcast episode says, this is why being busy all the time isn't always 100% effective. So we're dishing out our time, we're time slotting, and we are putting it into the categories where it needs to be to create the most effectiveness. So we don't want to leave anything on the plate. So we're going to stack things on there one at a time. We'll eat what's on our plate, we'll digest it, then we'll start something else. And that's the way that we need to go about this. We need to be that kid at the buffet that yes, they had to go to the buffet 3 and 4 times because they're only putting 2 or 3 things on their plate at a time, but they're making the most of it, and they're wiping everything out. Whereas the one kid that stacked his plate up, staring at the same plate for 30 minutes trying to eat, and I'm so full, I can't finish my food, I want dessert. Things like that. We stare at that same full plate over and over and over again, and we're like, oh, it makes us sick to our stomach. We get tired, we don't want to do it. So it's better to put a couple things on your plate, go back to the drawing board, figure out where you're going to go from here, come back, sit down with that plate, devour the food that's on that plate. We're going to go back to the drawing board. And the way, yes, it's going to take more time that way, but you're using that time more effectively because you're focused on 1 to 2 projects at a time versus 5 or 6 projects at a time. So if that makes any sense, I really hope that it got to you. Just my main advice for anybody watching this on YouTube, listening on the podcast, take your time, focus on 2 to 3 projects at one time, go back to the drawing board as many times as you need to make it effective for your life, because there's people out there that you plan to serve that need you. So getting your stuff out there effectively is how you're going to best serve those people. So set your intentions, create an action plan, create goals, and then hack away at it. That's the best thing. That's the best advice I can give you. If you like this episode, please share it with your friends and family on your social media. If you're on YouTube, please give this video a like. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to the channel and click the little bell so you don't miss any notifications whenever I upload videos. So I appreciate you all so much for taking the time out and being here with me on the Unstruggle Mindset podcast. I will see you in a couple days. Thank you all so much.